2 weeks back, I had posted a poll on my YouTube channel where I had asked my viewers to tell me whether they liked Hirak Rajar Deshe, Charulata, Nayok or Sonar Kella the most. I had expected a different outcome, but an overwhelming majority, 67%, said that the movie they liked most among the four I had mentioned is Hirak Rajar Deshe. Hirak Rajar Deshe released in 1980 and is one of the few Satyajit Ray movies that were commercially successful. I believe the most commercially successful Satyajit Ray Bengali movie is Gopi Gain Bakha Bain, and probably the second in the list is Hirak Rajar Deshe, because Gopi Gain Bakha Bain, they are legendary characters. They are characters that have transcended the world of Satyajit Ray and probably have become even bigger than Satyajit Ray, as seen in Gopi Baha Fire Elo, which was directed by Satyajit Ray's son, Shandip Ray. So Gopi Gain Bakha Bain, I can legitimately argue, are the first superhero characters in Bengali movies. They do possess supernatural powers, and those supernatural powers come in handy in Hirak Rajar Deshe. Hirak Rajar Deshe is one of the few Satyajit Ray movies which is not adapted from a work of literature. Most of Satyajit Ray's movies are adapted from literary works like Pather Pachali from Bibhuti Bhushan Bandopadhyay's work. I can think of only a few movies which are not adapted from books such as Kanchenjunga, Nayok, Hirak Rajar Deshe. And these movies are spectacular, especially Hirak Rajar Deshe. Hirak Rajar Deshe, as good as it was, did not win the National Film Award in 1980. The award went to Akale Shandhane, another great Bengali movie directed by another great film director, Mrinal Sen. We can talk about Akale Shandhane in a different video. Having seen that so many people liked this movie in the poll that I had uploaded, I wanted to watch Hirak Rajar Deshe once again, although I have seen it multiple times, but I wanted to watch it once more before talking about it again. So I watched it today on YouTube, and I want to review this movie in its own inimitable style. Please check out my rhyming review of Hirak Rajar Deshe.
In lands where reason meets a royal snare, Ray weaves a tale both sharp and sly, a kingdom trapped in polished glare, with truth beneath a tyrant's lie. The Hirak Raja rules with steel and gold, his diamonds blind, his school unlearns, while teachers whisper brave and bold, a storm of thought within them burns. Enter Gopi and Bagha, heroes true, their songs like daggers pierce the veil. They come to sing, yet more they do, they fight with wit when swords would fail. The rhyme machine, a fearsome beast, turns rebels into mindless clay. No chains, no cells, no guards at least, just verses that will steal your say. Ray paints oppression with a grin, satire dancing in every scene, a children's tale yet tucked within, a mirror sharp and rarely seen. The music playful yet profound, in every note rebellion hides. Each lyric circles all around, where laughter meets the rising tides. Shaumitro's eyes, alert and wise, reflect the pulse of lurking strife, and Utpal Dutt, with royal guise, becomes the face of puppet life. A fable rich with layered might, its message cloaked in clever play, Ray gifts us reason, bold and bright, to light the dark in our own day.
Not very good poetry, but that's the best I could come up with. The great thing about Satyajit Ray's Hirak Rajar Deshe rhyming is that it doesn't feel forced, it's conversational, it's not very artistic dialogue which is difficult to understand, simple, easy to understand words just in a rhyming scheme, a very neat rhyming scheme. We'll talk about the rhyming scheme in more details, and we'll also talk about a very common myth that only Shaumitro did not speak in rhymes in Hirak Rajar Deshe. I don't think that is correct, and I will show you evidence to prove that Shaumitro wasn't the only one in the kingdom of Hirak Raja. There were others also in the very beginning of the movie who were not speaking in rhymes. Shaumitro wasn't the only one who was speaking in prose. So we will talk about that, but before that I want to highlight one point. There is a personal connection with Hirak Rajar Deshe that I have. The place where Hirak Rajar Deshe was shot, I spent 3 years of my life there working as a doctor. So with that out of the way, I also want to point out some things that I noticed while watching the movie today. That in this movie, Hirak Rajar Deshe, the story, the screenplay, the costume design, the dialogues, the direction, all of them are credited to Satyajit Ray. So it's not just the screenplay, it's also the story, it's also the costume design, it's the music and the direction. All of that is Satyajit Ray. And this particular film, Hirak Rajar Deshe, was produced by the Totho Sangskriti Vibhag of West Bengal government. Now, I don't know what the literal translation in English should be. Totho should mean information, Sangskriti should mean culture, so Information and Culture Ministry of the government of West Bengal. So the government of West Bengal produced Hirak Rajar Deshe, a very visibly political movie which talks about how we should always resist tyrannies. So that's a government funded movie which has a distinctly political tone. It's probably the most political movie Satyajit Ray has ever made, and it talks about how you should resist the rule of a tyrant. That's really interesting. Now, one of the reasons why people believe that this movie was directed against Indira Gandhi's emergency is because it was produced by the government of West Bengal. In 1980, the government of West Bengal was led by the Communist Party of India, Marxist. So the chief opposition of the Communist Party of India, Marxist, was the Congress Party. So since the Communist Party of India, Marxist government, or the left front government, produced this movie, Hirak Rajar Deshe, people naturally concluded that this movie was talking about Indira Gandhi's emergency in India from 1975. However, in true Satyajit Ray fashion, this movie, like many of his other movies, have transcended the barriers of geography as well as time. So while this movie can be appreciated regardless of where you live, it can also be appreciated regardless of which era you are living in. So even 50 years later, you can still appreciate the content of the movie, and maybe for you the tyrant has changed. Maybe the tyrant is no longer Indira Gandhi in the emergency. Maybe it was the communist government that produced this movie. It can make that much sense, and it is quite ironic that the government that funded this particular movie can also be regarded as the target of this movie if you really think about it in that way. Each person has their own tyrant in mind depending upon their own political beliefs. The beauty of the movie is that it is timeless, it is allegorical, and without taking names, it talks about how people should always resist the rule of a tyrant, and because tyrants keep changing, the target of the movie also keeps changing based on your own political beliefs and your own living conditions. That's a beautiful aspect of Hirak Rajar Deshe and a very interesting factor that I wanted to share with my viewers. Also, I did mention that Hirak Rajar Deshe did not win the National Film Award, but it did win many national awards. It did win the Best Music Award for Satyajit Ray. It also won the Best Male Playback Singer Award for Anup Ghoshal, and it also won the Best Bengali Feature Film Award. In 1980 or 1981, the Best Film Award went to Akale Sandhane by Mrinal Sen, who many believe is as good if not better than Satyajit Ray. I also want to highlight some important aspects of the movie, such as the opening shot. The opening shot of a movie is always well thought out and highly metaphorical and significant. In this particular movie, the opening shot is of an hourglass. An hourglass is featured in the opening shot of the movie Hirak Rajar Deshe, which basically signifies time is running out. Now, it may be literally taken as time running out for the characters Gopigain and Bhagabain, who were not seen on screen for 10 years. 1969 is when the first movie came out, Gopigain and Bhagabain, which was a huge commercial success, certainly by Satyajit Ray standards. The only similarity Satyajit Ray and I have is that our works are not commercially successful, they don't generate much revenue. That's where the similarities end. Satyajit Ray is a worldwide renowned figure. I am not even renowned in my own family. But jokes aside, Gopigain and Bhagabain released in 1969, Hirak Rajar Deshe released in 1980. So that's a very long gap. That hourglass could be signifying the long wait that the audiences have had to endure to see Gopigain and Bhagabain again on screen. It can also signify a plot point that Gopigain and Bhagabain have been idle for 10 years. But it can also signify something much more significant, the wait for Satyajit Ray to make a truly political movie. His contemporaries had been making political movies. Satyajit Ray had refrained from making a political movie, and even when he did make a political movie with Hirak Rajar Deshe, he made it in such an allegorical, such a fantastic fashion that, as I said earlier, it is timeless and you can't really understand who he is talking about when he is talking about a tyrant. Again, pick your own tyrant. Another thing I want to talk about is, in the very beginning of the movie, you see that the tyrant in this movie, played by Utpal Dutt, takes control of a scientist, which basically hints at science can be used in evil manner as well. Science is a very powerful tool, and whoever has control of science can put it to good use if the person is good, or can put it to evil use if the person is not.
ভালো কথা বৈজ্ঞানিক কই দেখি না তারে তিনি গবেষণাগারে মহারাজ
Another thing I noticed is that in the Bengali language, this is something which people who are not from Bengal will not be able to pick up, so I want to point this out. In Bengali language, the word for art as well as for industry is the same, Shilpo. When Utpal Dutt calls his Minister of Arts Shilpo Mantri, he can also be referring to the Ministry of Industries, Shilpo Mantri. And the translation by the translation software is Minister of Arts, whereas he was talking about mines, so he was actually talking about Minister of Industry. It's very interesting in Bengali that Shilpo can refer to art as well as to industry, and Shilpi is an artist, whereas Shilpopati is an industrialist. A very interesting thing that I want to highlight is that just because the dictator or a tyrant is funny, you shouldn't give him a pass. This is an example of Utpal Dutt being very funny. Please check it out.
শিক্ষামন্ত্রী মহারাজ আজ থেকে বন্ধ পাঠশালা পাঠশালা তুমি কি কালা
But that does not mean that you should give him a pass. He is every bit as tyrannical as a tyrant can be, and he should be opposed. Don't defend him just because he has a sense of humor. Now I want to talk about something very interesting. Whoever has talked about Hirak Rajar Deshe, they have waxed eloquent about the use of rhyming scheme in the dialogues, and they have also pointed out in the same breath, usually, that the only person who does not speak in rhymes, the only person who speaks in prose is Shomitro, and that signifies that Shomitro is an educated man. Because he is a teacher, because he is learned, he is speaking in prose, he is not speaking in rhymes. Everyone else, including Gupi Gain and Bhagabain, are speaking in rhymes because they are illiterate. That is a false argument. There are other people in the movie who are also not speaking in rhymes. These are the three visitors to the court: the farmer, the worker in the mine, and the singer. They are also not speaking in rhymes. They are also airing their concerns. They have visited the king to express their concerns, to place their demands, to request the royal court for mercy, and they are also not speaking in rhymes. If you don't believe me, check out this scene where the farmer is talking to the king.
কি নাম আগে ফসল মিয়া রাজা মশাই কি চাই রাজা মশাই জমি আছে আমার 2 বিঘা চাষ করি গেলবার অজম্মা গেল ফসল ভালো হয় নাই ঘরেতে বউ আছে ছেলেপুলে আছে দুবেলা খাবার জোটে কি জোটে না তার উপর মহাজনের সুদ খাজনা দিতে গেলে তো আর বাঁচবো না রাজা মশাই
So next time you watch Hirak Rajar Deshe, realize that Shomitro wasn't the only one who was not speaking in rhymes. The others were also not speaking in rhymes because they were also not brainwashed. But post brainwashing, they also started speaking in rhyme. I found it very interesting that this is a movie talking about tyrannical rule. It is talking about a kingdom ruled by a tyrant, but it does not feature violence. It can very easily feature violence. There are instructions like remove all visible signs of poverty when people from other kingdoms are visiting. Still, there is no overt display of violence. Violence is hinted at, but no violence is shown in the screen. In fact, in Hirak Rajar Deshe, it is clearly mentioned that the greatest way to achieve total tyranny is thought control. Hirak Rajar has a machine which can control your thoughts, and if you can control the thoughts of the population, if you can control the minds of the population, That's the perfect form of tyranny. You don't really need violence or incarceration or other methods of suppression if you can control the thoughts of the population. The first thing that the ruler in the Kingdom of Diamonds, Hirak Rajar, does is he wants to close the schools. He does it in a very funny way, but it is very, very significant. If you close the schools, you close the place where people learn to think. If people stop thinking, they stop questioning and they stop disobeying. That's the rationale, and it's perfect rationale from the point of view of a tyrant. But the movie also has something which I feel is a cautionary tale which careful observers would have noticed. Like I said, this movie was produced by the communist government in West Bengal, so it was largely viewed as an anti-Congress movie, anti-emergency movie. However, if you've paid close attention to the movie, you must have seen that in the climax of the movie, where the statue of Hirak Raja is being pulled down with ropes, everyone who is heaving at the ropes is also speaking in rhymes. What does rhyme signify? Brainwashed. So the people who are also bringing down the tyrannical rule have also been brainwashed. They are also speaking in rhymes. That mob, including the king who has been actually brainwashed, they are also doing the bidding of one leader, which is a cautionary tale against all revolutions. If you have paid attention to revolutions, revolutions are basically a result of a group of leaders or one leader being able to mobilize a mob. That mob has also been brainwashed. That mob was not speaking in prose. That mob was saying, Dori dhore maro tan, Raja hobe Khan Khan, which is a rhyme, sign of being brainwashed. Maybe brainwashed for a good cause, but still brainwashed. The cautionary tale is, even when you are bringing down the tyrant, don't get brainwashed. Be aware that one tyrant can often be replaced by a worse tyrant. Thank you for watching this video.